Okay, so what I'm going to do today is yesterday's video was about how to make meaning out of what you read. Today is focusing on explaining your thinking. So another way to get deeper into the meaning of a text. And I'm going to fill out this graphic organizer. I'm going to use my screen this time instead of handwriting it. It might be a little easier to read. But we're going to start off with theme. Now, theme is the lesson that a text is teaching us. So that's what we're going to start off with. And I'm just going to type my notes right into this box. And you need to fill out your graphic organizer as we go through this. So initially, in the beginning of the story, the giant was arrogant. He thought that he did not have to take anyone else's feelings into consideration. He doesn't want to share his garden. So this gives us some idea of what might be happening later. I'm going to skip a line just to keep my thoughts separate. At the end of the story, the giant feels remorseful. He's sorry for the way he acted. He learned that not only should he enjoy the garden, but he should let the children as well. And then my final thought about this is the theme of the story is that selfishness allows you to take things for granted. When you're only thinking about yourself, there's a lot of things that you're not going to see, you're not going to appreciate. So that's the theme of our story. Now, there's probably other themes as well, but just figuring out one theme is usually a good way to go. So now we're going to be moving on to character development. Now, character development in a fiction piece like this is always something to pay attention to. So we have in the beginning of the story, the giant behaves selfishly, hence the title of the story, by not allowing the children to play in his garden. In snow, frost, and hail, although not that main characters affect the story. So this tells us that even minor characters who don't play a huge role can still affect the other characters and the plot of the story. So then finally we have the giant changes drastically in this story. He recognizes his own selfishness and the problems that it caused to his garden and to others. He becomes warm and welcoming and appreciative. Okay, then we're going to move on to the plot. Because in a fiction story, plot is going to be one of the most important elements that we have to pay attention to. Now you can see the little plot diagram here kind of as a guideline of what you're going to be filling in here. Okay, so the rising action began when spring came all over the country. There were blossoms and little birds singing, except for in the giant's garden. So that's definitely the rising action there. Now, you could continue on, I think, to the climax of the story, which to me, now you may see it a little bit differently, and that's okay. To me, the climax of the story is when the giant helps the little boy into the tree. That starts the change of the story. Okay, now we're going to move on to the setting. Now, the setting for a story like this is not complicated. It doesn't change. As far as location, the conditions change, obviously, because of the seasons. So we're going to say the story takes place in the giant's garden that is located at his castle. At this time, the garden is beautiful with blossoms and birds. The garden changes due to the behavior of the giant. Everything is dead due to the weather. So the setting, location, is the same. The appearance is altered. This is important because the setting is impacted or affected by the main characters' actions and behavior. So we can see that characters they have an impact on the plot, just the way the setting has an impact on the plot and the characters. Okay, so now we're going to move to the next part of our graphic organizer, inferences. So we need to make some inferences to help us fully understand the meaning of the story. So I'm going to talk about the very end of the story because it didn't say outright what happened to the giant, but we can make inferences based on what happened. So I'm going to say I can infer that the giant has passed away peacefully. In the story, the children found him lying under the tree, covered in white blossoms. And that's after the little boy that he originally helped into the tree, the one that was the turning point for the story, has come back to the garden. So we can see him as sort of like someone to guide the giant to uh, to heaven or to the afterlife or whatever is happening in the story. So now we're going to look at evaluating key ideas. It's important not to only recognize the key ideas, but to understand how do they affect the story. So we're going to talk about the giant's behavior plays an important role in the story. Whoops. Important role in the development of the plot. The little boy who mysteriously disappears until the end when the giant dies is one of the reasons Giant's heart opens to change. He feels sorry for him and he gets emotional when the little boy hugs him. So we can see that these two things definitely have an impact on the story, and they're some of the most important ideas that you will see in this story. So now we move on to the next part of our graphic organizer, synthesize and create new information. What this means is we take what we read and we can think about things in a different way. Synthesize means to pull together in a different way. So this is what I got out of that. The author does not explicitly state that the giant passes away at the end of the story, but the presence of the little boy that no one seems to know except for the giant, leads me to believe that the little boy, which I cannot spell apparently, could have been an angel, saving the giant from selfishness. It kind of makes me think of the old idea of an angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other shoulder trying to um, get um, get you to either make the right decision or the wrong decision, except this was an actual person, not an imaginary being. So now we're going to talk about author's purpose, because even though it's a fiction story, the author had a point that he was trying to make when he made the story. So that's what we're going to finish with. The author wrote this story to tell about a selfish giant who acknowledges, means he admits, how his behavior not only affected himself, but others as well. And also, the story is fictional and serves the purpose of entertaining the reader. So that's our graphic organizer. Make sure that you get yours filled out all the way, and then you'll be able to do your own graphic organizer over the story Smiles to Go. So make sure that you're getting all of this filled in. It's got to be done correctly in order for you to move on to the next step in the playlist.